Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is our, we're in June. Somehow we got to be in June already. I hope everyone's doing well. I know different libraries, we were chatting before we started about, you know, some libraries are still closed, some are starting to open. Everybody's in different phases. So I hope everybody's well, and we will just get started. I wanted to apologize for kind of last month. I had my father passed away, and totally, yeah, that took up most of my month of May. So sorry, I kind of dropped out of communication there for a while, but we're back, and everybody's doing well. So thank you. Okay, what I wanted to do today was to spend a little bit of time. I know that we have started doing some talking about the blanket PO process, and Laura had written up a Word document that kind of laid out, you know, what it takes right now to do a PO, and maybe some ideas for, or for a blanket PO, I should say. We have stuff for regular POs, and some ideas for, you know, changes that we could make. We posted this on the listserv, and hopefully people got a chance to kind of look at that and kind of gather your thoughts. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that. I guess I'm really curious to hear other experiences people have had with other ILSs, how that was implemented in some other ILSs, or just, you know, what it would be like. I don't know if I don't really have a link to this document if you don't have it. If you go to the list, or if you go to our group chat, well, yeah, I'm not sure how to point to it if you don't have it. But I could read this description here for the blanket PO, you know, upgrades. Let's see. So the suggestion is basically to add a checkbox in the vendor record that contains the text allows blanket PO orders, or something like that. You know, like we've got some other things standing there. And in the contract details section. And then in the invoice screen, have a drop-down menu for a new field called charge type. And those values could be invoice credit, blanket purchase order, standard order, or regular invoice. If you were to click blanket purchase order or invoice credit, you would see something like invoice amount instead of shipping cost. Most of the rest of the procedure would be the same. So does anybody have any feedback or thoughts or ideas about the blanket PO process?
Well, I was the one who really liked the idea, I guess. This is our third system, or actually it's about our fifth system, but this is our third system where I'm attempting to try to do something with blanket POs. We were able to do it in Millennium, and we're also able to do it in Evergreen, which is the system that we just came from like a couple years ago. So our staff has just been used to using the acquisition system to track our blanket POs, and someone did provide me with some with the starting point, and I said, oh, well, that's good, because it looks, even if you add an invoice right now to the system, it has to come through a basket, and in order to debit the amounts from your funds. So it was just sort of, so you have to sort of like receive, even though you're not really receiving or whatever. So it's sort of a kludgy back around way of dealing with it. And it works pretty well, actually. It's just, you know, what the screen says and what it's actually doing are different. So that's why I just thought, well, you know, it didn't seem like it would be, you know, terribly difficult to add like a charge type to the invoice. And I just came up with some other ideas of things that I thought other libraries might use this for, like a standing order, which we don't have, but I know other libraries have used that, you know, regularly, or credit or whatever. Although I guess there's a way, since I started doing this, that credits are now, you can deal with them in the system. But anyways, I was just trying to throw out some ideas, and it didn't, if we sort of modified slightly what we were doing now, I figured it would cost that much to try to implement. That was the idea anyways.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Margaret did post a link to the group, Google group chat, so that you can go in there and see the document. So yeah, if you want to look at that, I think blanket POs are probably something that a lot of libraries use for different reasons. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, maybe that's something that again, that there's a lot of interest in, that we can maybe start pushing. Kind of an aside, I don't know how many of you peruse Bugzilla, but I was in there yesterday and came across 2 bugs from I don't know, someplace out, I think Europe, one of the European support people, that referenced our 13325 about tracking funds for budgets. And they have actually started working on the first step, which is logging the acquisitions transactions. When is a basket added? When is a basket deleted? When is an order added? When is an order canceled? All those different things. So, that, I think, getting this stuff out there and getting other people across the world to actually see some of these ideas that other people are interested in, that alone is helpful to get things moving. So basically, we've got step 1 covered in the 3-step process that Bywater had laid out. So that was really good to see. So I think, the same thing, if we can maybe get a bug out there with some of this blanket PO stuff in, we just kind of have to decide how we want it to look, put something out there that people can get their hands around and understand. And then that will help things move along too, because I think, we all agree there's plenty of things we can do to improve the acquisitions part of Koha. Did anybody else have any ideas about blanket POs? How have other people use blanket, that concept where you take a bunch out right at the beginning and then kind of charge against that? That's, basically what we do like for overdrive, you know, our electronic, our digital stuff is we just do one big PO and then buy against that for the next few months. Does anybody else do anything like that?
Yeah, we use ours for, we have some patron-driven acquisition accounts. So, you know, we like pre-select things, but they don't bill us until like a patron actually uses them. So that's, you know, that in some streaming media. We have PDA for Canopy, and we also have it for EBSCO ebooks. So it's just a matter of encumbering the funds like ahead of time, and then it allows us to keep track of how much we still have left on this account.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, you know, if you have any other ideas about how to do this, you know, how this PO process could be beneficial to you, definitely, you know, post in the Google group. You know, we'll be watching that just to get ideas and stuff. If you've had experience on other ILSs that, you know, you think, oh, that, you know, this worked really slick here or whatever, just workflow kinds of things. I think that would be great. So I think what we'll do now is move on to our next item, which we had talked about last time, actually signing off on a bug just to show everybody how that works. So I did find, oh no, I found a bug. Yes, I thought I had messed up my papers. Okay, so I found a bug that was pretty simple. I actually signed off on it already, but we can do it again, as Margaret pointed out multiple times. So this way I know that what I'm going to do is going to work. So what I will do first is close some of these crazy windows I have here. And all right. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. All right. Did that work? Oh, there we go. Okay, just took a long time to come up. I think that's the whole thing. So can everybody see my screen and all the chaos that is my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So want to do this step by step. So the very first thing that I do is find the Bywater sandboxes. So what I'm going to show you is how to sign off on something using the Bywater sandboxes. So this is how I find it. I just search on Koha and sandboxes. And I think sometimes I throw a wiki in there too. Okay, so you'll get to this page in the Koha wiki that's basically a wiki and then sandboxes. In the table of contents here, there's down here under 5, it says available sandboxes. So there is, I click on Bywater, that brings up this Bywater solution. And these are they call them self-provisioning sandbox stuff. And so this is the link that you need. So basically, if you can remember this link, you can just type that in. I never remember the link, so there you go. There's also a couple of video guides right here, and both of those are good refreshers. You know, like when you walk away from here and then you try this in a week or in 2 weeks or whatever, and you can't remember what certain fields are. These two demos, this one is done by Kyle. I'm not sure who the other one is done by. I always watch this, the one done by Kyle, to refresh my memory of how this all works. So what we'll do is click on the sandboxes. So you can see I've got one out here. That's the one I tested yesterday. I just left it in case all heck broke loose. When I tried to do it today, we would still have this one to test on. But the first thing that you do is up here in the options, we've got create. And then there's a bunch of fields that you need to enter. So what I should have done is bring up Bugzilla and show you the bug. We're going to do 25611. It's real, you know, simple, straightforward kind of thing. So you can see it says signed off here. That was me doing that the other day. So what this is changing the vendor when creating the basket. Does not keep the new vendor. So when you open a basket, you know, first you search for the vendor, and then you do create new basket. And then once you've got the basket open, you're like, oh, that was the wrong one, the wrong vendor. I didn't want to, you know, use Amazon. I wanted to use, you know, Ingram or whatever. There's a drop down that lets you change the vendor. And previous to this bug, you could change the vendor all you wanted, but it would never save it. It would always just revert back to the original vendor. So this bug is supposed to fix that so that it actually saves it. So what you do, you know, you've got your bug here, and okay. So what I'm just working through my mind how this order should go. I think I've screwed it up already, but okay. So what each bug should have is a test plan. So here we can see that Jonathan created a test plan for us. So what we want to do is we'll just follow that test plan. So back here at the sandboxes, the first thing is enter your name. So what this is used for, and it tells you underneath here, this will be used for signing off the patches. So you want to do that and enter a simple name for your sandbox, lowercase, all letters and numbers. So what I usually do is just put in the bug number. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say 2 at the, or let's see, I'm going to put 2 at the front just to make it not confusing. So there's my sandbox name. And then here, I guess I'm not going to put the 2 at the front. I'm just going to call it B. How about that? Okay, now it's happy. And then here you actually, this is where you tell the system which fix to apply to the system. So we will put in there that bug number. Mark flavor, I just leave that alone. This is for if you don't have the code in the bug and you have to use the Git repository. I've never used that, so I would just ignore that. The description and the notes are just optional, like it says here. If you want to, you know, help yourself remember something or whatever, you can do that. So, and then this is the CAPTCHA, just to make sure that it's not some robot that's doing this.
Rhonda,
And-
can I ask
yes.
you a question? So how does it know what version of the system it's testing, or does it always, when you're doing this, it always tests the most current version of the system or the master, or how do you know?
Yeah, this is always going to use the most recent version of the system. So
Even if it's not yet, like we're still working 1911,
right.
and you know 2005 is sort of, I think it's sort of semi out. So this
Yep.
would be testing on 2005.
Yes, I think so. I'm not sure. Margaret, do you know?
Yeah, so Laura, you were right when you said master. So master is the latest, most current thing that the developers are working on. It doesn't technically have a version number, it's just called master. So when these sandboxes get built, it's using the latest pushed version of Koha, that whomever the version manager, release manager is, has approved. So everything that's gone through reporting, sign off, QA, pushed to master, it's going to be working off of that. So things get fixed in master first and signed off there, and then applied to a version and backported to previous versions if applicable.
So whatever we work on, we wouldn't see probably for several months, assuming we signed off on it, because it hasn't made its way through the food chain yet.
Exactly, I like that. Made its way through the food chain. It does definitely go through a cycle. And there isn't one web page I can point you at the moment that explains the whole cycle and timeline. Since it's an open source community, there are hard dates for when new versions are released, and then whatever has been worked on and approved by QA and published, pushed to master, pushed to the release by the release manager, that's what comes out in a specific version release or point updates in between essentially May and November each calendar year. You can always potentially run master in your production environment. Some people do it. It's a little bit on the wild side from our perspective, but it's doable. And then you can always have the latest things available to you in Koha. Usually people do that in a demo site instead and see what they like.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, you may have noticed that I kept refreshing this page, and this status right here went from provisioning pending, or provisioning pending, yeah, to provisioning to provisioned. And then once it was provisioned, these blue buttons showed up. And those are how you access the staff side and the OPAC side of this new system that we've built with this bug added to it. So, and I wanted to show you, you know, if you go into Bugzilla and just search on acquisitions, you can see all of these new bugs that have shown up. There's a lot of new things for acquisitions. These are all things that people could work on as developers. Then assigned, it means somebody's grabbed it, basically. Somebody's looking at it, somebody's working on it. So that way you don't end up with two people trying to solve the same problem at the same time. In D is in discussion. So there, you know, something about the request needs further clarification. That's kind of the area we if we can lay out exactly what we want, we can avoid that step maybe, or make it a little bit shorter. That's a good thing. These are actually needs sign off. So those are the ones that you would look for to help move things along. That's where I came across these that I'm looking at. Oh, okay. The one that we have is signed off, so it's not going to be in that list. But the ones that let's see here if I can, this one, add additional acquisition logging. And there's one that, oh, that one's signed off already too, so it's not going to be here. The problem, I wanted to demonstrate this one. I talked to Margaret about it yesterday. This one actually has a dependency of, you need to have another bug on your system first before you can test this one in the sandboxes, or before you can test it, period. And in the sandboxes, that's just way too tricky. So I don't even know if it's possible to do a dependency with the sandboxes. So we just kept moving past that one. These right here are, these are ones that are signed off. So in this list, yeah, right here, we can see that this is the one that we're looking at. This is the one we're gonna sign off. These fails are failed QA, so quality assurance. For whatever reason, you know, it could be something as simple as comments in the, you know, the way the code was written, you know, or it could be that the function, it's just not working the way it's supposed to be functioning, but for whatever reason, it failed QA. And then, oh, patch doesn't apply. Sometimes as you're working on something, you know, the area that you're in, somebody else might be making a change or whatever, and then your patch doesn't fit anymore because somebody else has gone in and made it a change or something, you know, for whatever reason, the patch doesn't apply. So the developer will go back. And then these are pushed to master. So all of these right here will be on the system that we are testing on. And there's a bunch of those too. And I don't even know what blocked means.
It could be blocked by one of those. So you have some things that are dependent on others to be eventually pushed to master. And blocked is just, this is not going to work with the current master setup of code that's in Koha. Like, just there is some significant roadblock and the developers can't proceed with it yet.
Okay. Margaret, could you watch the chat for me just to see if there's anything coming in there? Because I see,
Laura is asking, is there a place that discusses all the status values? So like a resource on Bugzilla that explains what the different values are and what they mean? Kind of glossary.
Yeah. So that, you know, I'll go, what does still mean, and what do these columns mean? And, you know, so that if I might have a better sense as to what to work on and, you know, myself, you know, like later on.
I've got a couple of tutorial videos about Bugzilla itself. Let me go fetch the links for those and I'll post them in chat. Does that work for now?
Yeah, thank you.
okay. All right, so let's go. Let's go back to our sandbox. I keep, there we go. Okay, so here's our sandbox. So what we want to do, what we need to do is follow our test plan. So our test plan, let's see if I can, I'll just go back. Let's find our test plan back. So here it is. So the test plan is to choose a vendor, create a basket, and then assign a new vendor once you've created the basket. And then without the patch, the new vendor doesn't change. And with the patch, it does change. And then how I interpreted this was to, save it, get out, and then go back in and try and edit the basket and see if you can change the vendor that way too. So both at the creation and coming back later and editing, trying to change the vendor both of those ways. So we'll click on the staff button. That'll open a new window, and it's always koha for the passwords and stuff. And then we go to acquisitions. And in this system, it took me a while to figure this out, but there's one vendor set up, and it's called My Vendor. So we're going to just search on that vendor. And there is one basket here already, but we're going to add another one. So, because that's what our test plan said to do. Oops, we got to go this way. Choose a vendor and then create a basket. So we're going to create a basket. Testing vendor, we'll call it. And I think what our test plan said was assign a new vendor. So here's the vendor, the little drop. Oh, that's right. I forgot something. Let's back out of here. We need to create a new vendor, because this is what typically happens. You figure out, oh, this system doesn't come with a lot of data. So you need to, we're just going to call it Ingram and save it. Okay, so now we've got two vendors that we can swap back and forth between. So let's go back to my vendor.
Just for people's knowledge, if they just click on the vendor search tab without putting any data in, it'll give you all the values. So you could see what was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that must have been what I did to figure it out. I couldn't figure out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's our vendor choices at this point. We just always know who our vendors were, so I never had to try that. Okay, so this one, we're going to pick my vendor. Oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. We're going to do a new basket for this vendor, and we'll try it again. Testing. Okay, and then we're going to switch the vendor, and we'll leave everything else and we'll save it. And you can see that this is now an Ingram order instead of my vendor order. So that looks good. Yay, we successfully changed it. So the other thing, all right, so now we go back to, oops, I can do that every time. We'll go back to our test plan. Okay, and it says with the patch, the vendor is changed, yay. And then step 4 is edit the basket and change the vendor. So we have a option here called edit basket. And we decide, oh yeah, we really did want my vendor. And so we save it. And now the basket is for my vendor. And that looks all super. So anybody have anything else you want to test with this? Because this is the time to do it. I used to work test, and it's like creativity is what pays off at this point. Sometimes the advantage of people who use acquisitions, testing acquisitions, bugs, is that you know the ins and outs of stuff. You know the weird little maybe not traditional workflows that you use. So you can get in here and try things and make sure that it's really working the way you want it to. That's, I couldn't think of anything that you could do to this one besides the two cases where you're on creation and then on, editing it at a later point. So if that's all good, then we think, okay, yay, we can do this. This is good. So now we go back to our sandboxes, and we're this first one here. And under actions, there is a option to sign off patches. So you just click on that and you get another form to fill out. It will take the name and the email that you put in when you created the sandbox, and it will replicate them here and the bug number. Now, this number of patches is pretty important. So what you need to, and what they're asking there is how many units of code are actually getting applied here. So back here, when you look at this, you can go to the logs, and under get log, you can see, we should have checked this earlier, but you can see that right here, we see that this bug is the bug we were testing, that it has applied. It's been applied to the system. So we're actually testing what we think we're testing. You might mistype the number or something like that, and it won't apply, but we've applied it. And we look at the next one, okay, that's a different number. So we have just one patch. But if you look at this one right here that Katrine signed off on, it's bug 10910. And oh, here's another one, 10910. So that one, when she signs off on that one, she would have put 2 in the number of patches, because there's actually 2 pieces of code, 2 sets of code that, sometimes that, they write code and then, they go through tests and they realize, oh, there's a problem. So they'll do a little follow-on piece of code to fix that error. Maybe that happens once or twice, so that's what this stuff is all about. So back to you.
Sorted so that the things are together, or do you have to look through the whole list?
They should be right next to each other, because they will be applied one right after, they'll be applied at the same time. So they should be right next, right next to each other and at the top, the one that you just applied. So, okay. So we will just do 1 as the number of patches, and then the CAPTCHA again. And then, so this is an important thing to note. Oh, I guess I hit enter, and what that note said was that I'll show you when we get basically what it says. So now if we go back to, sorry, I hit the enter key not thinking and then went on. So I'm going to refresh this, and we can see there's 2 sign-offs here now, both of them being me. And this looks all good, but what that comment that I scooted past before said is right now those sandboxes, what it won't do is it won't update this status. This one is already updated, but if it said need sign off before, it will still say need sign off after you signed it off in the Bywater sandboxes. So what you do is you click edit, and then there's this little drop down, and you change it to need sign off. And then I'm not sure how to get out of here. I will save my changes since it's not a change. So this
And
this-
Bugzilla will automatically advance you to like the next bug in the list once
Yeah.
you save something. Don't know why it does that, but don't worry about it. Just
Yeah.
back button your way to where you were at.
There's this. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Okay, so we have signed off a bug. The sandboxes are, you know, pretty simple to do it, to sign off, if you have a fairly straightforward bug to sign off. Bugs that require command line statements, or, you know, cron jobs and all that kind of stuff, you really can't do through the sandboxes because you don't have access to that stuff. But if you have something that's pretty user interface driven, this is a way to sign things off. Questions. I know this can be pretty overwhelming the first time you see it, because this is, I've gone to a number of conferences, and each time it's been, you know, how do I do this? How do I do this? But this is much simpler. These sandboxes have made it much simpler to do sign-offs than when we first got on Koha.
This has been helpful.
Good, I'm glad. You know, it sounds pretty intimidating, but it really isn't. And I think the developers really appreciate the input that librarians can give, and, you know, the people that are actually using this code. And, you know, I was real excited at first when I realized that there was a bug out there that was actually going to do the function that we had been talking, or, you know, the beginning functions of actually keeping a log of acquisitions stuff. But yeah, it's not something that we can do with this particular tool because of the dependencies. If that other bug, the first one that it depends on, ever gets pushed to master, then we could test this one. That's true, right? Okay. So the other one has been signed off already. So, you know, we can wait, you know, kind of wait and see. But I'm guessing somebody will come in and test that one, because they're very closely, they're related. They're real close to each other. It's just one has like 4 different functions that they're logging, and then the other one adds another, I don't know, 6 or 8 acquisition functions that they're going to start logging. So that alone, you know, just having that information captured in the system is going to be a real plus for us too. And it's kind of cool to know that there are other libraries across the world that are talking about the same things that we are, functions that they want. So, okay. Any other questions or things that people are interested in related to the sandboxes?
Should we look at some other bugs that we think we want to sign off on?
We could. All right, so I always go to home. And Margaret, is there a best way to find bugs that need to be signed off? I just kind of hut and pack.
That'll work. There's also using the browse feature. So if you go to the top of the page and then under the green bar, it goes home, new browse.
Okay.
and then koha, the first one.
Oh, okay.
And then you can navigate to acquisitions and then sort the list by the status it's in.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So,
That's the way I usually do it. That doesn't seem like too many clicks for me, but using the searching features, advanced search features, you could just bookmark it, setting up to just look at the module acquisitions and then the status needs sign off. And it doesn't hurt to check out maybe some other areas of koha once we've exhausted the list of sign offable acquisitions bugs, go do a cataloging or circulation one, and then chat with the person who's hanging out working on that bug, that developer, and say, hey, you know, I just signed off on this other one. And, you know, when you have a moment, if you want to go QA it, that would be nice. So spreading the love around Bugzilla a little bit usually returns on that investment of time.
okay.
So before it gets to be sign-offable, so to speak, have to be assigned to someone and they have to do a plan for like how you would fit this and do the code thing. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd say there's the two parts of the bug or enhancement needs to be reported, and developer needs to write a patch, so the code change itself, and then an explanation of what this patch does, the test plan. And then you can get into this needs sign off because the problem's been reported and a potential solution has also been reported.
So for the bugs that are at a new status and they haven't been assigned to anyone, we can go in and we can comment on how we think this might be helpful, because that's another thing that we might be able to do with this group, is to try to get people to focus on those particular ideas. Is that true?
That's true.
100%.
Sometimes it says there's low interest. Well, it may be low interest because no one knows that they're interested. Not that there really is low interest.
Yeah. And so, you know, like this one right here, well, yeah, once there's a fix for it, you probably don't need to promote it as much.
Right.
But, yeah, for some of these other ones, especially this list of new,
Right.
you know, it just goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So I will say more bugs, more problems with the code, more potential enhancements. They all kind of sit in new status for a little bit. And there's a lot and something of a backlog for it. Some of these are a couple years old. And it's kind of picking out the ones where you want to invest that time to make suggestions on how it should be fixed, to talk to koha developers around the world, at Bywater, at Interleaf, PTFS. You'll see a lot of those names, Biblib, floating around, and encouraging the developers. This is why this one's important, because sometimes it's just a lot, and picking out which ones, especially the ones that are like not immediately intuitive to fix, you kind of have to nudge them a little bit, because developers, believe it or not, are human beings. It'd be nice if we could clone them and just make them work all day, but they do have the same kind of, ooh, that looks like it's fun, or that's interesting, or that looks simple. Let me do the low-hanging fruit first. So if you can make some of these new ones stand out as delicious ripe fruit that they just need to pluck off and write some Perl code for, that's more likely to get it moved through the community cycle, through that food chain, up and pushed to master, and then into a koha version.
Okay, thanks.
All right. We just have a couple minutes left, about 7. And And I wanted to leave a little bit of time to discuss any questions or problems with 1911. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now for a minute. Has everyone migrated to 1911? I know this is kind of the week of migration, so there's probably some people that aren't on 1911 yet. Okay. We are on it. It was not that big of I mean, we didn't run into that many problems with it. Our catalogers with the advanced editor needed to do some setup of the keystrokes, you know, copy paste and stuff like that. They needed to make a few adjustments there. That's all fine. I think you didn't really notice too much difference. Yeah. Yeah. We noticed that in a basket, the quantity column, yeah, it doesn't display on default, which is kind of interesting. So Holly put in a ticket for that, because that's kind of an important one when you're going through baskets to see that.
Hey, Rhonda.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Marcy. I just noticed that same issue because we upgraded a couple of days ago, and there's a bug out there right now, bug 25557. So apparently the order of the acquisition table doesn't match in the admin, where you configure it. And so if you're telling it to hide column 6, because 6 is what's displaying in your basket, that's actually a different column. So, because I just started well, I didn't start a ticket. I emailed the update email.
Okay, that's good information. Okay.
So yeah, take a look at that bug, and that'll tell you how in the admin to hide the ones you don't need and make the ones that you do need, like quantity, appear.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's very good information. All right. Okay.
And I'll piggyback on that to just illustrate the developers are human beings, and took, I would say, the simple route of just saying, we'll put it in this order, but not necessarily looking at the column name. And that's how we ended up with this particular flavor of unintended feature in this version of Koha.
Okay. I'm just going to put in a plug for one of our developments made it this release. It's an enhancement on the J to A cron job, I guess it is, which allows you to do a whole lot more patron changes. Basically what we wanted it for, and I'm really curious to see how other library, you know, what creative things other libraries will be able to do with this thing. But we always had a rule, or a policy, I guess is a better word, to when patrons came in for the first time to get a library card, we made them a category of new patron, you know, new family, new individual, all that kind of stuff. And then we had a matching set of patron names that were not new. And so after they'd been a new patron for 30 days and they had fines less than $5 and a valid driver's license number in their account, we would move them from new to regular. So the new patron only had like 5 checkouts and I forget how many holds, but then like the regular family card could get 45 checkouts, or, you know, so, you know, once they prove themselves for a month to be good citizens then of the library, then then we would upgrade their account. And that was all done automatically in the background with our old system. So this new enhancement to, used to be called J to A, I think it's patron_update or something like that. There's more words in there. But it will allow us to do that thing automatically, you know, run it once in the evening and check for everybody that needs to be updated. So just encourage people to explore that idea. If you've got some policies that, you know, you're not quite sure how to, you know, if you've got how to implement or enforce them, or you've got some, you know, staff person in the background with a report churning away, trying to get, because that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years, just have a report. But this will do it automatically. So, any other thoughts about 1911? I think we've got. Okay, well, okay, so yeah, we can revisit this next meeting too, because it looks like a few of you are well, so Flower Mound goes tonight, and Jennifer upgrading on Saturday, and 19th is Friday, right? Yeah, how could I forget that? Okay, see you, Margaret. Have a good day. Yeah, so and if anybody has anything that they would like to bring up and discuss at one of our meetings, please send me an email and I'll get it on the agenda. The next meeting will be, hang on one second. Looks like July 21st is the third Tuesday in July. So that will be our next meeting at the same time. And we will see you all there. It's good to see everybody again. And yeah, that's, you know, keep talking to each other and on the Google group, and we'll get this going soon. Yeah, and yeah, definitely everybody stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.